Welcome to the G'day Sally show. I'm Sally Squires, entertaining the world. So tonight I'm going to read a story from my book Pockets, and the subtitle of the book is The Coat of Hidden Treasure. This story is called The Letter from the Sultan. The postman was late. Not that I was expecting any letters. I never got any letters, but I lived in hope that one day I would at last receive a letter from someone mysterious and somewhat magical. As always, my patience was stretched to the limit as I waited, and our postman knew I would be waiting for him. It had become a sort of game. I would wait for him. My excitement would rise as I saw the first signs of his donkey carrying the heavy dark leather mailbags. I would see the donkey's ears popping up above the horizon first as they climbed the hill together. When he did finally arrive on his long journey from the Sultan's palace, he was wearing a big smile. I had never seen such a smile on Alfredo's face before. Usually his mouth was turned down at the corners, as he was never the bearer of good news for me. But today, not only was he smiling, but he waved to me as soon as he reached the top of the hill. And I do believe he shouted something, but he was too far away for me to hear him. "A letter!" he called out as he got closer. "Diego, you have a letter!" And truly I could see him waving a large earthy brown coloured envelope. I was so excited I almost fell off the fence where I always sat while I waited for him. I'm not sure who was more excited, Alfredo or me, at the unusual occurrence of a letter for me. In all my 12 years I had never seen our postman so excited. Slowly his donkey, Bertolazzo, clomped to a stop, wheezing just a little. How many more years would this strong but small willing donkey be able to make that hill, I wondered. Alfredo couldn't contain himself. "You have a very important letter, Diego. The most important letter I have ever carried." "Well, Bertolazzo and I have ever carried," he added hurriedly with a quick stroke of his willing donkey's neck. I couldn't believe what he'd said. I had never received a letter before, any letter. And here was our postman telling me that I'd received the most important letter he had ever carried. Who would be writing to me? "Diego, you'll never guess who," said Alfredo, his smile getting broader and broader until it stretched right across to his floppy ears. Waving the letter out to me, he said, "It's from the Sultan himself. See?" as he pointed to the Sultan's insignia in the top right corner. "Diego, you have a letter from the Sultan," he said again, and I could almost see him mentally bowing to the Sultan as the most important man in our country handed the formal envelope to him. "The most important letter I and my humble servant Bertolazzo have ever carried," and he patted Bertolazzo's head as the tiny donkey cropped some weeds sprouting by his front hoofs. I could hardly wait to open the Sultan's letter, the only letter I have ever received. Alfredo left Bertolazzo to graze as he followed me into our cottage. Such an important letter needed the use of a beautiful carved letter opener. Pulling open the heavy drawer in our kitchen chest, I reached in for the carved ebony letter opener that I had never had reason to use before. It had been carved by my father, the village woodcarver, and he had given it to me for my 9th birthday with his love. I treasured that present more than any other birthday gift I had ever received, and I was so happy that I finally had a very special reason to use it. Alfredo was nearly falling over himself with excitement as I slowly slit open the large envelope and gently eased out the contents. As I timidly unfolded the heavy cream paper of the Sultan's letter and gazed upon the dark ink, I could see his name proudly embossed in gold across the top of the sheet. "What does he say?" prompted Alfredo. "Why is our Sultan writing to you, a 12-year-old boy?" "Alfredo, please sit down quietly and I will read it to you." Without looking behind himself, Alfredo sat down quickly in my father's chair. "My dear Diego, son of my childhood friend Domingo," began the Sultan, "I have some very important news that concerns your future. Therefore, I command you to present yourself at my palace gates tomorrow at exactly 3 o'clock. not a minute before and not a minute later. And this important letter was signed His Imperial Majesty, the illustrious Sultan of the Sun. I was shaking as I read the Sultan's words. Not only had I just received a letter from the highest official in the land, but I was to meet him in person tomorrow. I had to sit down and recover from this astounding letter. Alfredo, too, was speechless. He had to fortify himself with a glass of water before he could say a word. Finally he regained himself enough to smile at me and say with enthusiasm, "Bertolazzo and I would be honoured to carry you to the Sultan's palace for this prestigious occasion, if you would be so good as to allow us, dear Diego," he said as he took his leave to continue delivering his letters, but none so important as mine. True to his word, the next afternoon Alfredo arrived with Bertolazzo in plenty of time to take me to report at the gates of the Sultan's palace promptly at 3 o'clock. We were very early, in fact, so we waited a short distance away where we could see the village clock tower to time my arrival exactly at 3 o'clock. The gateman let me in as he adjusted his red silk turban. "This way, young master," he said as he conducted me through a maze of the most beautiful gardens I had ever seen. The Sultan must love perfume, because I was overwhelmed by the various sweet aromas of the flowers as I followed in the footsteps of the tall, dark gateman. He hadn't introduced himself, but all the villagers knew that his name was Captain Zedra, and there were many tales about him and his nefarious exploits in faraway ports of call. It was said that he had been captured by a famous pirate when he was a boy, and he had been to all the corners of the ocean-going world. No one knew exactly where he had been born, and in his travels he had learnt many languages, no doubt a very useful skill for his master the Sultan. I was too nervous to even speak to him, so I followed as he trod on the sweet-smelling path in his thigh-high leather boots. Finally we arrived at a huge carved oak door. I recognized the insignia on the panels as the same as the one on my letter from the owner. No doubt his insignia had a very special meaning, but it was many months before I was privy to exactly what it meant. The door was opened silently by someone inside the building, and we went through to a large open courtyard surrounded by grapevines. There was no one that I could see, and I wondered how long it would be before I finally caught a glimpse of the illustrious Sultan of the Sun. Captain Zedra showed me to a table and chairs at the side of the courtyard in the shade, and bade me sit. Then he withdrew. There were rooms upstairs I could see, which opened out onto a veranda running the full length of the building. I wondered if one of these rooms was the Sultan's personal chamber. After some minutes, a woman appeared with a jug of iced mint tea, which she poured out for me into a beautiful golden glass. Handing it to me, she smiled. "Do not be afraid, young master. The Sultan is a wise and caring man. He is not to be feared, but only to be loved." I sat there with my thoughts racing as I drank the delicious tea. Again I questioned myself. What could a sultan need of me, a mere boy? The illustrious Sultan of the Sun must have everything in the universe that he could possibly want or need. Why me? What was his plan? Suddenly I heard the sound of a bolted door being opened, and when I looked up I could see two huge doors to the side of me being opened out. I blinked at the brightness of the sunlight which swam all around me, and then I heard a deep male voice. "Diego, please come in." The Sultan came forward to greet me, and I instinctively dropped to one knee and kissed the golden ring on his finger as he held out his hand to me. The Sultan laughed, and I flushed red in embarrassment. "Do not be embarrassed, small master. The beloved son of my childhood friend does not need to bow to me. I greet you as an equal member of my family. Come, let us go inside and discuss." The room the Sultan showed me into was opulent, to say the least. I had never seen such furnishings, nor such treasures. Truly they must have been brought to him from all the corners of the world, and from many places which I had no knowledge of. He beckoned me to a chair, which was covered with a fine mohair rug. I went to remove the rug so I would not spoil it by sitting on it, but the Sultan waved away my gesture. It was the softest material I had ever felt. "I note that you were here at my palace gates promptly at 3 o'clock," he said. "That is a very good start." I wondered what he could mean by the start of something. He went on. "I was very sad to hear of the death of your father, young Diego. He was a very kind and good man. Truly such men are too scarce these days. I have very fond memories of our times together, and though I offered him many positions in my household over the years, he always refused me, as he felt he wanted to grow up as an independent soul, an attitude I understood and respected." This was indeed news to me. I had never ever heard from my father of any such offers, but I was not surprised that he felt this way. He had stressed his independence from all outside support to me many times. "Which brings me to the purpose of your visit here today," said the Sultan. I leant forward so as not to miss a single word. "You are 12 years old now, and though to some that is an age of independence, I feel that it is too young to be left to live on your own and to find your own way. So if you agree, I propose that you will become an apprentice to the master of my horses, and he will teach you and train you to take care of them in every way." I was astounded by such a plan. I was speechless. I love animals of all kinds, and to work with the Sultan's horses every day would be my dream come true. The Sultan's face took on a worried look. "You are not in favour of such a plan? You do not speak." "Oh, master, truly I am overwhelmed with joy at such a proposal. It would be my childhood dream to work with animals, and to be able to help in some way to look after your horses would be my great honour indeed. I truly thank you for your kindness." The Sultan smiled. "Then it is agreed. You will move into the palace and have rooms near the horses, so if they need your attention during the night you will be close by. Captain Zegna will arrange everything. You need not trouble yourself. He will accompany you home to your cottage and help you pack your things." I couldn't wait to tell Alfredo my amazing news. He would be as astounded as me, I'm sure. And when I told him, I do believe a slippery tear rolled down his old face. He was so overcome that he hugged me, and then he was embarrassed to be seen by Captain Zegna. He wouldn't hear anything else but that Bertolazzo would be the carrier of my meagre belongings down the hill to the Sultan's palace, and he was very anxious that I agreed to meet him every week on my day off duty from tending the Sultan's magnificent Arabian horses, so that he could hear all about my adventures and my new life. So that was the letter from the Sultan from my book Pockets, The Coat of Hidden Treasure. You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world, with people here from all over the world. And Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world, with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for more than 40 years with wonderful Hawaii-designed batik clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out the wonderful items that Noa has on their website, www.noanoahawaii.com.